Welcome to the Transform Your Wealth and Health podcast, where experts in wealth, health, and fitness help transform your life. Here's your host, Andy Arter.
He's a mindset and motivational coach of the first order, the author of the book, Become a Better You, and the entrepreneur's mindset go-to guy. Today's guest is Byron Morrison.
Hey, thanks for having me on this evening.
That's absolutely no problem at all, Byron. We're glad to have you on. So you're an author. Tell us about the background to the book.
Well, basically, it all started a few years ago. I was kind of one of those people going through life, didn't really know what I wanted to do. I was really struggling with my personal life. I was overweight, depressed to the point that I didn't want to leave the house. I was always fighting this internal battle with anxiety and self-belief. And my dad actually got cancer. And during his treatment, he had most of his bowels surgically removed, and he spent 25 days in ICU. Most of that he was on life support and breathing through a tracheostomy. And that was kind of the wake-up call that I realized if I don't do something about this now, then that's going to be me. So I set out my own journey to lose the weight and change how I thought and felt, and started learning everything I could about health and nutrition. And that kind of led me down a completely different path that I never thought I'd be on, because in the past I was sort of something I'd never enjoy. I was afraid of it, and that kind of sparked my passion. And I found there was such a big disassociation with all of these trends out there and what we were told to do. And that's kind of, once I got qualified in all of it, I set about writing a book, kind of help other people who were struggling on that journey. And that's kind of brought me to what I'm doing today.
Sure. So how long ago did you write the book?
It came out about a year and a half ago. So it started about 3.5 years ago.
And what would you describe the book as being about, if you had to put it in like one sentence?
It's all about helping people become the best version of who they want to be. So looking at the pillars of their health, which is their mindset, their diet, their exercise, and also getting proper rest and recovery. So it's very much a holistic approach to improving our health.
Yeah, I think that's something I've suffered from a little bit. Earlier on last year, I did a podcast about how sleep had affected my health, because I had a bit of time where I'd gone through lack of sleep just to get some things done, and I thought I was being clever, and all of a sudden you hit a brick wall, and I was ill, and nothing much got done, so it didn't help.
It's so important, I think, especially for people who are running their own business or who are always on the go. We kind of sacrifice sleep as the first thing to cram more in, and we don't really realize how big an impact it has on how we actually think, our emotions, how we respond to different situations, and just our overall health. And it can so quickly actually catch up with us.
Yeah, sure. So what's your background? Because you've got a slightly unusual accent, might I say.
I actually grew up in Johannesburg in South Africa.
Did you? Yeah.
I've been in the UK for about 21 years now.
I was going to say that, because you actually sound quite English, but then now and again an accent kicks in. So it's Johannesburg, is it?
Yeah, I get asked if I'm Irish or Australian quite a lot, which I don't quite get.
Well, it's probably because it's, you've mixed the two now and people are unsure of where it's from. So, okay. So you support others, but who supported you along the way?
When I started my own journey, I reached out to different mentors. I found people who kind of inspired me. I looked at different authors or coaches and kind of got my grounding, because I'm a firm believer in, if you want to change, you find someone who's done it and you learn from them.
Yeah.
So, because at the start of my journey, I made so many mistakes. I tried to do it all on my own. So I really got inspired by a guy called Mike Matthews, who wrote a book called Bigger, Leaner, Stronger, which was all about exercise and nutrition. And reached out to him, spoke with him a fair amount, and then just different other business coaches and stuff that kind of helped me on my path. And it was very much, I think, like a lot of people, kind of learn by doing. You get some terrible coaches out there, kind of set you further off path. And I think a big part of it's just kind of actually learning from it for yourself.
Yeah, I get you. Yeah, I mean, there is some people out there that are teaching various things without experience. And of course, doesn't really 100% mean they're not teaching good stuff. But it's always better, I think, to go to people that's done it in the past. Why not?
I think that's kind of one of the biggest problems with the industry, though, is it's so difficult to kind of tell who's legitimate. Because you just scroll down Facebook and every other post is an ad from a business coach, and it's all jump on my webinar, download my guide, and these will be the secret strategies you need. And I think for a lot of entrepreneurs and business people, that kind of puts them in the wrong direction, because they're not really focusing on what's wrong, and it's just bouncing around from one idea to the other and kind of getting a lot of people lost.
Yeah, sure. I'm 35 years into my career of sales and managed to deal with some of the biggest companies around. And you still hear people that have said things that you think, hang on a minute, I've probably forgotten somewhat more than what they know. And it doesn't make them a bad person. It just makes them someone that's actually speaking to what they know at the minute. But when years and years go by and they've got more and more miles under the clock, some of the things they're probably saying now they might regret. But, hey, we're all young once, aren't we?
Yeah, it is, especially if you go on YouTube. There's a lot of people kind of taking the idea of someone else and just kind of copying it.
Yeah.
This whole entrepreneur lifestyle is kind of portrayed as this easy path to money, parties, and private planes. And a lot of people try and sell something that they've never actually lived or been through.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of one of the biggest things that we really need to change.
Yeah, we've got a guy coming on to the podcast called Kwesi Afam, and Kwesi runs a podcast himself called The Slow Money Club. And he says, that everybody's out there talking about get rich quick, and I believe you ought to be getting rich slow. So he wants to talk about that more. And likewise, I believe in your business, there's the same kind of stuff, motivational mindset coaching, etc. Some of this stuff needs to be done over years, as opposed to let's get you fit tomorrow and you'll be fit for the rest of your life, because our minds don't really work like that. If you had a problem, no doubt that problem will still be there. And I got to say that I'm also a yo-yo dieter, for example. So 1 minute I'm brilliant, the next minute I'm not so good, mostly not so good. And basically it's a matter of my mindset needs perfecting over a longer period of time with food. So it's something that I've suffered from, and I'd like to do better at it. Hence this conversation. You might be able to help me too, Byron. So how do you deal with people that want to get fitter, because you know about that too, and also produce the mindset towards getting fitter and healthier and eating well?
I find one of the biggest thing is turning the approaches that they've used in the past on their head. Because most people think if they want to lose weight or they want to eat healthy or whatever it is, they have to go on a diet. That's what you're told you have to do. But the problem inherently is diets don't work, because they're all about restriction. They're all about what you have to give up. And I put you in this mental battle between what you want now and what you want most. And for a lot of people, that's why they can stick to it for a couple of days. But then inside it builds up. They want that donut. They want that piece of cake. And all of a sudden they give in. They think they're a failure. They feel guilty and they give up. And it's really not a long-term solution to what is actually a really big problem. So what I always advise people doing is, instead of focusing on what you have to give up, focus on what you have to put in. Because naturally, if you start small by adding vegetables to meals, drinking more water, you'll start feeling better. Your energy will go up. Your metabolism will start working. By adding more vegetables to your meal, naturally, you'll cut down on other foods. You'll feel fuller. And just by doing that, you'll actually cut down on your overall calories and get a big shift in your progress without putting yourself into a negative state of mind.
Yeah.
And by fueling your body with what it needs, you can actually break away from dieting altogether. Because a lot of the ladies I've worked with in the past, they spend most of their life bouncing around from one diet to another, and they could lose a little bit of weight and they'd regain it and go around in circles. And we found the only way to get lasting results for them was to break that trend and get them to see that actually by putting the focus on what their body needs, they can actually do it in a sustainable way.
Yeah, sure. I've not had any problems losing the weight. I lost 30 pounds in 3 months, but sustaining it is much more of an issue. So it's a lot harder keeping it going over a long period of time when you're busy trying to do lots of things. So you can make excuses, of course, but I'm having to reevaluate things, look at it again, so that I can get some techniques and processes in place that I can do well and stay doing well.
Exactly. What I always say to people is, you can lose weight on any diet or plan, but if you don't keep it off, then it hasn't worked. Because so many people do all of these quick fixes and they'll lose a stone in a month, but then a month later they'll put the weight back on, and they just go round and round in circles. And that's why mindset's such a big part of it, because by focusing on the core of the problem, which tends to be people's relationships with food, how they feel about themselves, all the beliefs about who they are, what they can and can't do, and getting a shift in that, that's when they can start to move forward. And I'll give you an example. I had a lady come to me a couple of months ago who had a really rough few years. Her husband had passed away. She had made redundant, and she was punishing herself with food. She gained over 120 pounds. And every single day at 3 o'clock on the dot, she was in a cycle of binge eating. And that's something she had been doing for 5 years. And we dove deep into why she was reacting that way, why she had such a bad relationship with food and all of these limiting beliefs. And once we broke that and we actually shattered through them, she stopped binge eating. And now she hasn't been binge eating for over 5 weeks. And it just goes to show that by actually focusing on how you think and feel, that's how you get the lasting results. But without tackling the core of the problem, it doesn't work.
That's absolutely brilliant, Byron. She must have been absolutely over the moon when you managed to fix her problem.
It's all about just finding out why someone feels the way that they do, though, because we've all got beliefs about who we are. We've all got these doubts, these fears, and a lot of the time we let them control us. And people turn to food because everything else in their life is spiraling out of control. So they cling to that one thing that they can actually have a say or have a form of relief. And that's why food can control so many of us when we're stressed out, when we're tired, when we're overwhelmed, whatever it is. And it's just that quick fix comfort that in the long run does far more damage.
Do you ever get people to diarise the times and the types of food they're eating throughout the day? Because I'll tell you why. When I did that, I found that I was eating a ton of food late at night when I was tired. And you just mentioning being tired. Once I'd sort of got to grips with that a little bit, maybe even gone to bed a little bit earlier, that really, really helped. The weight just fell off me.
100%. It's one of the first things I do with anyone I work with. You get them to keep a food diary. And for anyone listening, struggling with this as well, the best advice I can give you is keep a food diary for 7 days. And in it, write down whenever you eat exactly what you're having, or you could take pictures of it, and also write down how you're feeling. Because at the end of 7 days, you can go through and you can kind of look for correlations between different emotions. So maybe whenever you're upset, you have a chocolate bar, or whenever you're stressed out, you go to the vending machine, or like you said, when you're tired, you start eating, and you can start looking for trends and then work out what to change. Because until you get that clarity, it's not going to work.
So what about the people that are the opposite to me then, that want to put some weight on, or maybe even if they want to get ultra fit?
It kind of depends on the person. It's one of those things that there is no one-size-fits-all answer. So if someone's trying to build more muscle mass, it is going to come down to needing a proper workout routine. They're going to have to eat the right foods. They're going to have to eat more food than their body's burning to put on weight. But at the same time, they don't want to eat too much because then they're going to gain more weight. And it kind of depends on a person-to-person basis.
Sure. Just changing the subject a little bit. You've kept fit in the past with your job. So you was actually doing day-to-day job where you was keeping fit. Do you still keep fit now?
I'm still in the gym probably 5 days a week. And that still amazes me because I think like a lot of people, I grew up with a fear of exercise. We have those nightmare PE lessons and we build this association that's something we'll never enjoy. And a few years ago, you couldn't catch me dead in a gym. It really intimidated me. I never thought I'd actually enjoy it. And now it's become a passion of mine. That's why I believe that if I can go full circle, so can anyone else.
Yeah. So what would you change from your journey, Byron?
I'd probably go back and tell myself to get comfortable being uncomfortable. Because for a lot of my youth, I kind of locked myself away. I was afraid to push myself to try new things. I kind of settled. I didn't want to start my business because I was afraid of failure. I didn't want to exercise because I was afraid. And I've learned that when we are uncomfortable, that's when we grow. That's when we develop, and that's where we find our new passions. And I wouldn't be here today doing what I'm doing if I hadn't pushed myself to try something new.
Mm-hmm. How do you think you've changed since you first started with your first client?
Definitely a big increase in confidence. It's the same as any venture. At the start of it, you've always got that little bit of doubt. You've got to get experience. You've got to learn what you're doing, try what works, what doesn't, and kind of grow from there. So I think looking back 10 years ago when I was an overweight kid, locking himself away, playing PlayStation all day and not wanting to leave the house, the confidence and self-belief is a night and day difference.
So we were talking earlier about diarising. Do you diarise at all?
I do when I've got particular fitness goals. I'll kind of keep track of what I'm eating. I'll kind of keep track of all of my trading and also business as well. I'll kind of try and keep logs of what I'm actually trying to work towards and kind of break it down and actually keep tabs on everything, because I find for a lot of people, they struggle because they kind of just go through life hoping for the best with no real plan in place.
Yeah, sure. So how do you get people on a plan?
Kind of just work out who they are, who they want to be, and then break it down into small manageable steps. Once they've got that clarity, then you can work out what you need to do to close the gap and then just build on it piece by piece. And rather getting someone to overhaul everything at once, very much start small, build a foundation, and then keep building on it every single week.
Okay. Well, I understand you have a new coaching program out and you're launching it soon. So could you tell us all about it?
Yeah, sure. Well, I spent the last few years working with ladies across America and the UK, helping them change the way they think and feel about themselves. And I developed a process called thought reversal to change the thoughts and stories in our head. And I did that for a few years. I really enjoyed it, got fantastic results. But I felt for me that something was missing, that I wanted to do something more and actually make a bigger impact. And I really went on this journey of self-assessment and realization. And I found out that what I'm truly passionate about is actually helping entrepreneurs who are on the same path that I was a few years ago, who are wanting to get their business going, but they have that doubt, they have that lack of confidence, they're being controlled by the voice in their head and getting knocked down by all the challenges and setbacks. So I've created a coaching program just for entrepreneurs to help them become more confident, to become resilient and get back that self-belief, because by changing the way you think and feel, that's how you get better results, you get better success, and you also get that fulfillment. So it's a 12-week hybrid of one-to-one and group coaching to guide people every step of the way and tailor the journey around them as well.
Brilliant. So when does this start?
It's going to be starting in the middle of March.
Okay. And when you say it's a hybrid, how are you starting it off?
It's all over the internet, so it'll be done over Skype and Zoom. Mm-hmm. So it's a hybrid of working one-to-one with me and also group coaching. So kind of round tables and having a community to give people support. Because I think one of the most difficult things is going through the journey on your own. But when you surround yourself with like-minded people who are on the same path, you can use that to motivate and inspire and help you grow and develop. So it's kind of taking all of that, putting it together, and then helping people actually start closing the gap in all areas of their life, from their business to how they feel about themselves, their relationships, and everything else.
Yeah, sure. So what would be your goals for the future?
For myself, or in which regard?
For yourself, yeah.
Since I set out on this journey, I've kind of been on a mission to change the world. And I know that kind of sounds big thinking, but that's always been, in essence, what I want to do. I want to change the way that people use and think about food. I want to change the way that people think about themselves and show people that actually they can have it all. They can have a thriving business. They can have great relationships. They can feel good about who they are. And actually wake up every day excited to be alive and help people get out of the rut that I was in a few years ago. Because the biggest lesson that I've learned is we can always make more money. We can always find other ways to change different things, but we can never get back time that we waste.
Yeah.
So my core message is try and make the most of every single day.
Byron, how might you advise someone who wants to start their journey of change straight away?
I would tell them to sit down, work out who they want to be 90 days from now. No more, no less, because if it's any more than that, it's overwhelming. A lot of people then get into fear, they lose motivation, and they don't take action. So think 90 days ahead, and then think, what do you need to do in order to reach those goals? And break it down into a step-by-step process. Look at what you need to do to start, and then just get started and take action. And then every single week, reassess and see what you need to build on it piece by piece.
Mm-hmm. If I was to say to you, this part of the podcast, I generally try and slow things down a little bit and we get a little bit more personal stories. Now, you don't have to mention any names, but might you be able to tell us a personal story about someone that you've helped?
Yeah, one of my favorite ones to kind of share is I think it's really powerful and kind of shows how big an impact focusing on you can actually have, is a lady who came to me about 1.5 years ago. And she went through one of my 7-day challenges, and she asked me at the end of it if she could speak to me about my coaching and support. And when she got on the sales call with me, she was very softly spoken. It was very difficult to get anything out of her. And eventually she started opening up, and I asked her what she wanted help with. And she kind of said that she'd lost herself. Over the last 20 years, she'd given everything to her husband and her daughter, but now her husband had left her daughter had gone to university, and she didn't know who she was. And she said that she just wanted to be herself again. And I asked her, tell me about that person. Who were they? And she paused and she completely broke down in tears, saying, I don't know who I am anymore. And this is a lady who for the last 20 years had been punishing herself with food. She was overweight. She had no confidence. Her life pretty much revolved around getting up, going to work, and then locking herself away, binge eating and watching TV all night. So with her, we had to start at the bottom. We had to start getting a shift in how she felt. We had to get her belief back and get her to stop feeling so invisible to the world. Overhauling everything at once wasn't going to work. So we had to start at the foundation. And fast forward a year, and this lady's now lost 77 pounds. She's skyrocketed in her career. She said to me when we first spoke that she would never exercise. It was something that didn't appeal to her. And within a few weeks, she pushed herself to start going to exercise classes. It's now something that she absolutely loves. See, you speak to her and you hear this passion in her voice. She's no longer softly spoken. She's now full of life. She's happy and she's fulfilled. And she's actually being a better role model for her daughter as well. And this is a lady who's completely turned her life around. But the only reason it happened was because she decided that she couldn't keep going on this way. She had to change. And I think that's a big thing for a lot of people. They kind of need to realize that change doesn't happen for you. It happens by you. And the first big step is deciding that, do you know what? I want to turn this around.
Yeah, sure. So it's like her being a different person then.
Yeah, we completely reconstructed her life. And basically, when she first spoke to me, she saw in a really negative light that she didn't know who she was. And it all comes down to perspective, because I managed to say to her that, you know what, for the first time in 20 years, you've got a clean slate. You can now become whoever you want to be. And it's just kind of changing the way people think, because we have this habit of always focusing on the negatives, about what we have to give up, about what's going wrong in our life. But if we turn that around and think, do you know what, actually there's positives as well. That gave her a fresh start. It gave her a new chance. And that kind of gave her that push to actually follow through.
Well, we're nearing the end of the podcast now, Byron. I know it's gone very, very quickly, but do you have any offers for the Transform Your Wealth and Health podcast listeners?
What I am going to be doing is, to any entrepreneurs who want to join me on this new 12-week coaching program, is because I'm piloting it, I'm going to be offering 50% off the usual investment.
Wow.
There's only 12 places available, and that's not kind of like a scammy act now or else. Because of the level of intimacy, I'm only taking 12 people on for it. So that's kind of going to be the first 12 people who want to take action. So anyone who kind of wants to reach out to me through the show notes, my email address is there. I can kind of talk to them and explain a little bit more about that. And I haven't actually announced this to the public yet. The announcement about the program's only going out in the next few weeks. So this is kind of anyone listening's chance to kind of take action on that before it goes live to the rest of the world.
That's brilliant. So we've got a first, so to speak, on the podcast.
Yeah, this is actually the first time that I'm mentioning anything about this to anyone outside of my friends and family. So
okay, we won't tell anybody, don't worry. Okay. So how can anybody contact you that wants to know more about what you do and your program?
The best place is to go to Tailored Lifestyles, which is TAILORED lifestyles.co.uk, or find me on Facebook at facebook.com/author Byron Morrison.
Byron, you've been a brilliant guest. Thanks very much for explaining all your programs and telling us all about your book and your early life, etc.
Thanks for having me on.
Now, I've trained plenty of people in my time. I've even been asked to train people from Coca-Cola and Glaxo's. But I've set myself a goal, and in 2018, I'm going to train over 100 people to improve their wealth and health. So if you'd like to be considered, it's personal training. I'm going to put it out there for application only. So I'm going to be doing this training initially at my home. So I'm going to have small teams of people. I'm going to work upon everything that you need for small businesses and also for online sales. And we have some people that are specialists that's going to come along and help us. If you'd also like to improve your health, we've got a program that's quite intensive. It's going to mean you putting tremendous effort in, but if you want to improve, I'm going to be able to help you. So please contact me on transformyourwealthandhealth@gmail.com or 07903 771 594. Thank you. I hope you enjoyed that episode, and until next time, start transforming your wealth and health now.